we go. So thank you so much for joining me today. As was mentioned, my name is Tiffany Bova. I'm the Global Growth Evangelist here at Salesforce. I first want to start by saying thank you for spending time with me here today to talk about growth being a thinking game, but also for being such an amazing partner and trailblazer in the Salesforce community. So with that, let's get started. Let me begin and ground this with this quote. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Now, what does that mean? Here's what I'd say, that so many of us, this may not be our first, adventure with a company and working and trying to grow at hyper speed and scale. And so sometimes we bring some of our past experiences as well as our past thinking to our current roles and to our current situations. And that may limit our ability to see the art of what is possible. That expert's mind may say, we don't do it that way here. We tried it, it failed a number of years ago. I don't think our culture can handle it. Or, those aren't the things that we really want to be doing, or the way I want to do things ultimately. And so having a beginner's mind means giving yourself a little space and time in every day, like you are over this kickoff, to hear new perspectives, get a few new ideas. Take some notes and say, that's not what I would have done in the past. Maybe it's something I should consider in the future. If you have that beginner's mind, the possibilities are endless. And I would even be so specific to say, maybe you give yourself a half an hour a day where you take a walk outside, or you just clear your mind and give yourself that opportunity to do that thinking. I usually do it when I'm flying in the air, but I haven't been doing much of that lately. But I do it when I'm walking or exercising. It just gives me that time to think differently about the things that we need to do day in and day out. Now, I'm going to ground you also in this jobs to be done concept. It's something that was discussed and sort of created by a gentleman by the name of Theodore Levitt many, many decades ago, that people don't want quarter-inch drills, they want quarter-inch holes. And as I understand it, you guys have been talking about this a little bit. And this is really relevant on the product development and engineering side, of course, but it's also relevant for those in sales and marketing. But let me be clear here. It isn't really about the quarter-inch hole. It's not like you say, wow, I put this hole on the wall. Isn't that fantastic? Like that was the outcome. Well, the outcome might have been to hang a shelf or to build a desk or fix your car or something like that. That is really what you're buying. You're not buying the drill to just sit and look at the drill. You're also not buying the drill bit to put a hole in the wall to look at the hole in the wall. You want to hang your family's picture or hang a shelf, as I mentioned. But what is really jobs to be done, what it's all about is ultimately the jobs remain similar over time. If you were a town away, thousands of years ago, I might have sent you a smoke signal and said, hey, come over to my, place and let's grab some food together. Today, I'll text message you. The job was similar, inviting you to dinner, but the solution you used to send that invitation is what has changed. So as you think about what are the products and services that our customers want today, what are those jobs that remain similar over time? But now instead, I'm going to conduct commerce via my cell phone. I'm going to ask for directions in my car versus looking it up in a Thomas guide. That's a US thing, but it used to be a book about this thick, and you would sort of find the address and it would give you sort of the way to get there, and you'd have to search it by yourself without technology helping you. The job was always finding directions from point A to point B, but now I can do it by saying something in my car and asking Siri or Alexa or whomever to give me directions to where I need to go. The job remains similar. The solution is what changed. Now, I'm just going to use Salesforce as an example. When the pandemic first hit, our co-CEO, Mark Benioff, gave us all a challenge to have 1 million conversations with customers, not 1 million demos, not 1 million, sales calls, but 1 million conversations. And the entire intention of that, big intention of that, was to uncover what are those jobs to be done in the future that we may not have in our roadmap, that we may need to reorganize. And sure enough, that's what we did. We ended up hiring 4,000 new people. We changed our product roadmap. We launched a product called Work.com. We did a lot of things from the foundation of those conversations, all sort of wrapped in this concept of jobs to be done. So when you're thinking about selling to a customer, marketing to a customer, developing a new product, adding new features and functionality, it isn't about price and capability. It's really about what is that outcome, what is the solution, and work yourself backwards. So that is just something to sort of get the level set as we begin our conversation. So let me set the scene. Sorry, somebody came in.
1 second, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Hey, VJ.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. Woo, it was right in my ear. So let me set the scene. Let me set the scene on sort of where we're going to have this conversation. I know you guys are in hyper growth mode. What are the things you're going to do to continue doing that? I'm going to begin with this digital first mentality. Look, so much is happening simultaneously, leaders and individuals. It's harder to inspect the business. It's harder to get people to participate and collaborate. While video has made it easier, now we're facing a different challenge, which is kind of this video fatigue of just burnout in this constant, always on environment, where we might have been able to break that up in client visits. We might have been able to break that up in face-to-face meetings, but now we're really tied to sort of our systems and video specifically, engaging with our customers and our employees. For sales leadership out there and leadership of the business, forecasting has become more lumpy. That's my technical term. And then coaching people has become even more important today, because making sure that they are developing themselves, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is really, really important. But most important is advising your customers on how to use your technology to solve their business problems, to help them have greater success with their customers. It's similar to us, right? If our customers are successful, we're successful. If your customers are successful, you're successful. So always keeping these levers in mind is a great way to ground yourself in where you should be focusing your time and energy, especially when it comes to these large macro trends that are reshaping the marketing and selling environments. Now, if you're in other parts of the organization, other than sales and marketing, I'm here to tell you that everybody's in sales, everybody's in marketing, because if you're developing products, that is part of what you're marketing and selling. If you're in legal, what are the contracts that are put together online to make selling more seamless and frictionless? Those of you in web design and web development, is the website intuitive? Do you have automation and bots and FAQs to answer those low-level questions? Excuse me, very quickly. All of you play a role. But this digital first distributed selling has been highly disruptive to a technology selling engine and selling motion that's been fairly consistent for 50 or 60 years. I could even give you an example that solution selling, compensation, making it to club as a top seller, right? Making it to that top echelon of selling. All of that was invented in the late 1800s, not in the 1900s and not in the 2000s, in the late 1800s. We've been selling in this kind of motion for a really long time. But now we have to think differently about how do we use technology, which we didn't have 130 years ago, in a high touch buying experience that may not be high human touch. Could be high touch from a digital standpoint, could be hybrid between human and technology, but ultimately B2B customers are now expecting these B2C experiences. Ultimately, for me, it's sort of B2E, business to everything, everyone, every experience, regardless of whether you are selling into C or you're selling into B, because we've all become super consumers over the last 2 years. And our expectations from other industries is getting dragged into what we do in the technology space. And then it leads me right back to that jobs to be done. Thinking about this rise of outcome centricity. What is that solution? What problem are you solving? That's the conversation. Now, you can't sit in front of your customer and go, what's the job to be done? It's not about using that language. It's about figuring out how to ask better questions to uncover what that future job to be done might be that they may not even know what they're looking for. Like someone's not going to say to you, I want to carry 6 million phones in my pocket on something with earbuds so I can go. They're not going to say that. They may say, I really enjoy music. I wish that I didn't lose my radio station when I was in the middle of nowhere, or when I'm running or I'm hiking. I want to be able to take multiple albums with me when I travel. Like they may say those kinds of problems. And in your mind, you're saying, well, hold on, maybe it's something like an iPod that can solve those problems. And now it's an iPhone, and now it's our cars and kind of everything. But that job to be done wouldn't have been, they would have designed in their mind that solution, but they would have showed you the problem statement. And then it's your job, our jobs, to understand how do we actually execute that from a product and service and bring that to market. Now, when you build a modern growth organization, I'm going to start us in customer experience being this new battleground. It's a statement that now gets tossed around a lot. It was a concept that I was part of as in my previous role as a research fellow at Gartner for a decade. I was part of the team that actually came up with the prediction that the chief marketing officer would spend more than the chief information officer on technology. And it was by 2017, I think 2018, that we predicted. Sure enough, that came true. But we had made that prediction some 6 years earlier. And so Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, and Salesforce went out and bought those marketing technology stacks so that they could add to the portfolio, knowing that the CMO was going to start to spend money on this experience to drive greater adoption, usage, and loyalty to their brands, to their products, and to their services. There is no industry that hasn't been touched, from car buying to buying homes to buying software, right? I mean, our co-CEO, Mark Benioff's whole goal was to make buying enterprise software as easy as buying a book on Amazon, and many others have said, I want to make my business as easy as ordering an Uber. I don't want my business to be Uberized. I don't want to have what happened to Blockbuster happen to us. I'd rather be the Netflix. Well, all of that underneath was about leveraging technology and driving towards a better experience. So even Netflix, as an example, was tracking how long it took you to find the show you wanted to watch. That's about the experience, not about the content. They're trying to get it to under 20 seconds that you'd find something to watch. And if they keep delivering on this experience and they raise prices, they're going to continue to see that they don't have a huge fall off when they raise prices like others might in other industries, people saying it's not worth the extra $3 or $4 or $5 for me a month. When the experience isn't getting better, I don't feel like that money that I'm giving them is getting used for benefit for me as a customer. So really leaning into what that looks like means that we have to completely rethink how we position our products and services. And so, customers will remember the experience they have with a brand much longer than the price that they paid. And so if you can think back to your last Uber ride, I'd ask you, how much did you pay? You might say, well, I don't remember how much I paid. And then I'll say, do you remember if the driver was too talkative? Was the car smelly? Was the radio too loud? Did you feel unsafe in the car? You're going to remember that experience versus exactly what you paid. Or if you go to a fine dining restaurant, the food was okay, but the service was terrible, would you go back? If the food was great and the service was terrible, would you go back? If the food was good enough and the service was fantastic, would you go back? That's the kind of question that your customers are now saying, and they're using this lens of, was the experience worthwhile to me, even if I'm paying a premium for that product or service? And the answer is yes. 80% of customers feel the experience a company provides is as important as its products and services. Now, for the product development team and engineering, I love your products. However, speeds and feeds are not so interesting. Additional features and functionality just for the sake of it isn't that interesting. But if you can improve the way your ultimate customers experience your products and services through the entire life cycle, understanding who you are, learning about the product, having demos, buying it, having questions, right? And really wrapping them with this amazing experience. The product is almost secondary. It's first, obviously, because that's who you are and that's what you do. But as customers make more and more decisions based on the experience that they have, especially with someone like you that's in hyper growth, as you scale, you don't want that experience to be impacted in a negative way because you're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is great. But you always want to make sure you keep track of what is the experience that you're delivering and giving to your customers, because it's just not enough to engage with them. You have to connect with them. You have to connect with them in meaningful ways, because over the last 2 years, that experience expectation has gotten significantly higher. How you share it, what you share, when you share it, in what channel, in what medium, it's definitely gotten more complicated. But we have to make sure that you're always focused on these 4 attributes. It's real-time communication and engagement in a personalized way. Dear valued customer, dear Tiffany Bova, dear Tiffany. While that's more personalization, but if the body of the email is consistent, then it's sort of personalization 10 years ago. But if it's dear Tiffany, we know you've done these 3 things with us in the last 6 months. Other companies that look like you have done this. We think you should do this too. If you're interested, what's the call to action? Click on this. It'll start a video conversation with your sales rep right away. It's predictive. And then it's optimized in the channel that they want to have you communicate. So it's know me, know what I want, and add value in each and every conversation. Now, sales being reimagined, you've got the outside sellers now, inside sellers selling from anywhere, selling digital first. The good news is McKinsey had actually done a study looking back from April of 2020 to November of 2021. Sales has stepped up. Initially, when the pandemic happened, customers, clients were unsure whether sales was going to be able to keep up with their expectations and deliver value in these interactions without being face-to-face. Fast forward to November 2021, and it went from like 67% of those thinking that sales was going to be as effective all the way into the middle 90% range, which means for all the sellers listening into this webinar, you've really stepped up in all of sales ops, sales engineering, marketing, all those that are supporting sellers out there in that moment of truth when they're in front of a customer. The work has paid off. So now we have to think about, now that this digital first kind of selling hybrid environment is the norm, what are the things we can do to continue to improve? Now, not lost on me, we're both technology companies, but we don't have a technology problem. We have a people process problem. I'm going to go back in time. It was way back in 2000 to 2004. I ran sales, service, and marketing for a web hosting company. We were a Loquaz beta client. We were Constant Contacts beta client. I was selling via chat. I was selling recurring revenue services in this thing called the World Wide Web almost 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And I can tell you that back then there was maybe a dozen marketing and sales technology products. Salesforce was 2 or 3 years old. I was using single user version of Act or Goldmine at the time. Fast forward 20 years, there's over 9,000 marketing technology applications that are tracked by the analyst community, not to mention all the thousands that are out there that aren't tracked. So we've gone from a dozen to 9,000. I think we could all say there's probably 100 ways someone could solve the outcome, issue, problem, job to be done that you solve, that we solve, that so many others solve. So what makes it work better? My opinion, it's about the people and the process. Why do I say that? Well, the first thing I'd share is the average seller spends 66% of their time on non-selling activities. Last time I checked, sellers want to sell. Last time I checked, leaders hire seller to sell. Your goal is to bring more revenue in the door, yet 2/3 of their time is spent on non-selling activities. You could say the same thing, that it could be on the customer service side or customer success side, that a majority of their time is spent poking around and looking for information because it isn't all in one place. Like, this is a statement so many of us could make, but it is the reality. The second thing is, as I mentioned on that first slide, coaching is so important. Unfortunately, from a coaching perspective, we spend way too much time coaching around administrative and process versus the value-based ones of account and deal strategy or actual personal development, how to get better at storytelling, how to be better virtually across a camera, how to be as engaging, how to prepare better. All of those things that are really required from a personal development and coaching perspective is so much more important than here are the 10 steps you have to do to, place an order. While important, a lot of that is absorbing a lot of that 66% of the time on non-selling activities. But where I want to land this, and this is what's so surprising to me, is this one stat. It comes from Bain and Company that 54% of sales reps would not be willing to spend $1 for an hour of their manager's time, not $1. So think about how we are here in this time of unprecedented change for the selling role itself, how we sell, where we sell, when we sell, what we show up with, how we demo, right? How we charge people. All of those things are coming at us simultaneously, and we're not spending enough time with our people developing them. But on the technology side, high-performing organizations are automating the heck out of that 66% of non-selling, whether it's data and customer notes logging, whether it's lead and opportunity prioritization, and whether it's next best action. Those companies that are using technology, specifically AI, to solve a lot of this and machine learning, whether it's Salesforce, which, of course, I hope it is, the platform can only do what the processes are organized to do and what people are trained to do. It's all about what's the output from technology, not about all the human input. And it most definitely is not about productivity metrics, which unfortunately have gotten much higher in the volume of productivity metrics that managers are looking at now that everyone is working remotely. And some of that is because of a lack of trust. It's not the reason to increase productivity metrics. It's really about making sure you're giving your people autonomy and enabling them to do what's right at that moment of truth so that they can show up with insights. It's not about outcome-based selling or solution selling, while all important, or challenger selling, depending which generation you're in. Ultimately, insight selling is about showing up with information that your customers cannot find on their own, that you've done the homework on understanding what is that job to be done, what is that solution or outcome they're looking for, how can you improve their ability to be successful with their customers, and your technology is a means to that end. So showing up with insights and moving away from price, product, feature, all of those things, by the way, highly important. And some of your buyers are going to want to know the details of it. But if you can keep the conversation at the top of that funnel around value and insights, it will differentiate you from those in your space. Now, there are a few connection points that are important to me. And one is this, that the fastest way to get customers to love your brand is to get employees to love their job. What can you do to help your teammates, people you manage, and if you're a leader, the greater organization, as employees, be more committed, engaged, and loyal to you as a brand? Because if they're happy, your customers are happy. You're developing better products. You're much more innovative. You're growing quickly. I don't think it's a coincidence. Salesforce is one of the best places to work around the globe, one of the most innovative companies in the world, and the fastest growing enterprise software company. I think there is correlation between that. You guys are a great partner. So I know you know our sort of culture and our values, and that is what we always lean upon to make sure that we're delivering those amazing experiences to our customers. Those expectations have forever changed. Hybrid, work from home, flex hours, come in 2 days a week, don't come in at all. How do you create collaboration and a sense of teaming? How do you create a culture when no one is in the same building as much as they used to be? I heard you guys just had your kickoff a week or two ago. Getting people together is really important, but ultimately people are going to make their own decisions right now until we sort of come out the other end of this. And if you're listening to this globally, I always say, look, we are in the same storm known as this pandemic, but we are not in the same boat. Parts of the world are having very different experiences around this pandemic. So always making sure that we keep our employees front and center is absolutely important. Now, this is about breaking down silos and building bridges. I'm not a fan of breaking down silos because I think there's importance behind it. Sales, marketing, customer service, engineering. I believe there's importance in the silos, but I want you to build that connective tissue from a collaboration standpoint. Build those bridges that actually allow you to be more effective as a connected unit. The first one is this disconnected teams. When teams are disconnected, it's usually the reason behind it is because of metrics. I'm just going to oversimplify here for a second. Sales, how much did you sell, right? Marketing, how many leads did you deliver? Customer service, customer success, how many calls can you take in an hour? How are those three things aligned? I'm just going to pick customer service as an example. So a number of years back, I called a large telco company out of Dallas. You can figure out who it is. At 20, I had a hard down. My internet was down. At 29 minutes, my customer service agent had to hang up on me and call me back. Now, why was that? Because they weren't allowed to stay on the phone longer than 30 minutes. He had to call me back 3 times. Now, was the experience great? Listen, this guy solved my problem. He was knowledgeable, he was helpful, he was patient, all of those things. But every half hour, he had to hang up. I knew why he was doing it because this is what I do for a living. They were not a Salesforce customer at the time. They are now a Salesforce customer. There's been 3 or 4 things as a customer I've now noticed from that brand because of those shifts. The metrics are starting to be more aligned. Someone comes and does a service call for me. I say something about streaming service. Within 24, 48 hours, I get an email saying, oh, you're interested in our streaming service. I can click on something. They know I'm a customer. There's been lots of improvement happening. And that's the kind of connection between teams and metrics that are really important. When you don't do those things, the unintended consequence is the fact that your customers do not have a great experience with you. It isn't about their needs. It's about your internal processes. So, if I were in a room with you, I could, have a little fun with this. But for those of you in sales, like how many stages in your sales process? Do you think your customers wake up and go, oh, today is such a great day. I am moving from stage 2 to stage 3 in my buyer journey. They're not saying that. Sales reps do not wake up every day and go, oh my God, I cannot wait to data enter into Salesforce. They're also not saying that. So how can we create an environment where your internal processes and systems are hidden from the employee, hidden from the customer, that are seamlessly integrated underneath? This is everything you have to do on the people process side, which is why I said this is not necessarily a technology problem. Now, if you don't have the technology to do those things, that's a different conversation. But if you do have that technology and you still have this disconnection, that's where people in process really, really have an opportunity to improve your performance. So let's pivot a little bit. Let's turn this to you, each of us individually. You have to invest in sort of the future you. Listening to these webinars from myself and others that you're going to get, that's a great example of staying curious, focusing on learning, finding that beginner's mind, being open to try things in different ways. The World Economic Forum actually predicts that 50% of employees will need reskilling by 2025. That's in 3 years. 50%. Maybe the way you market, the way you sell, the way you develop products is going to look totally different in 3 years than it does today. We know work looks totally different in just 2 years. A pandemic was the catalyst for that. But what's going to follow behind it? What are the things we're going to have to learn going forward? 76% of global workers do not feel equipped with the resources needed to learn these digital skills required to succeed in the next 5 years. This research happened through our Digital Skills Index about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So this is real time in 2022. Now, 82% of workers plan new skills to grow their career, which is fantastic, but only 28% are actively involved in digital skills learning and training programs now. So you can do it with things like Trailhead, which we offer. It's free for anybody to use, whether you're a Salesforce client or not. You can learn about storytelling, what the fourth industrial revolution is, how to recruit and retrain underrepresented minorities. And it does all that. And then, of course, it has stuff around our technology, how to use this products and services you might have better and more efficiently. Once again, trying to drive down that 66% of time that's spent on non-selling activities. So there's plenty of opportunity, plenty of need, but unfortunately still, we have to start to inspire those around us to make those investments. Now, while I understand this is a broad audience, this is specifically something we found in that Digital Skills Index for sellers specifically to be ready for the next frontier, having more empathy. And I think it applies across the board, not just to sellers. Data fluency, understanding how to use data, read data, and use it to make different decisions. Customer research, how to do that more effectively and efficiently. What kinds of information should you be pulling into your research and using? Could be surveys, could be that jobs to be done analysis, could be the million conversations example like I gave you that we did, which, by the way, since Mark asked us to do that back in, it was probably May of 2020, we're almost up to 7 million conversations. So, in classic Salesforce form, tell us a million and we'll do more. And then building relationships and virtual presence. How do you do that in a way that is effective and efficient? And you keep people's attention, you keep them engaged, you make them feel like they're collaborative and part of a team. That requires us to communicate differently, to use different kinds of tools. We have no meetings Thursdays. We've gone into asynchronous meetings using Slack, where everything is happening in Slack in a given day instead of Zoom calls or Google Hangouts or emails. And my email has cut in half by doing it. It was a totally new skill for me. I had not used Slack before we acquired it, and now I'm fully embedded in it. But I had to learn something new as well to figure out how can I stay connected and build relationships, not only with internal teams, but with external customers as well. Now, as leaders across the organization, there's also investments you have to make. How do you have that innovative mindset? How do you carve out time? Our No Meetings Thursday was really about having that time to do the work, to think about it. market knowledge, understanding what's happening in your industry, leadership skills. Look, some of you have been promoted to leadership and you were never trained how to be a leader. You were really good at what you did. Doesn't mean you don't deserve to be a leader, but you also have to invest in yourself of what does it mean to be a more empathetic leader, to be a better listener, how to be a better coach, how to conduct a one-on-one meeting, how to have tough conversations with your employees. All of those things require time and effort for you to find your own voice and your own way of doing things. So it's super important that as leaders, whether it's podcasts, whether it's webinars, whether it's TED Talks, whether it's going and taking classes, online or in person, to always hone in your skills. If you don't invest in yourself, how do you expect others to do that? So ultimately, you put the onus on yourself. Having your own sort of career development plan is really important. And then coaching and working with your people to have their own. What are their digital skills aspirations? What do they want to do with their career? And a lot of times I'll hear back from people, wow, if we invest in our people and they decide to leave, why would we invest in them? Well, geez, if you don't invest in them and they stay, that's almost worse. Why not invest in them? Why not be part of their career development? Why not send them out into the world, potentially to another organization with all the goodness and richness that they had in your organization? You will play a tremendous part in their development and goals. So with that, what will you do differently? What will you do differently because of what you've heard here today, what you're here, the remainder of your kickoff? I don't want you to just listen to this and go, wow, that was a lot of information. I don't know where to start, or I took a ton of notes. And then Monday morning shows up and you never look back at those notes. You never reflect on, what you heard and maybe put down some goals of what you wanted to do. I'm a huge fan of to-do lists, but I'm also a huge fan of to-done lists. What have you done versus what do you want to do? Because you also want to see that you're making progress. Those little 1% pivots over a whole given year. A year from now, you'll look and feel nothing like you do today. But whatever you do, I always say, unless you're a surgeon or you're going to kill somebody or it's illegal, be bold. Give it a shot. The worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't work. And that is really the responsibility of management and leadership, to give you that psychological safety that even if something fails, it's a learning moment. So in your next team meeting, ask them, everybody to share one thing that they failed at, of the last 6 months and what they learned from it. Rewarding and asking for that kind of information is a great way to keep people feeling like if something doesn't work, it's not the end. We will take it as a learning opportunity and move forward. So further sort of keeping in touch with me, if you'd like to there's a great white paper, Perpetual Innovation. You can text the words Growth IQ to 33777. You'll get back the white paper. If you'd like to join my mailing list, you can text email to 5544. For the international people, I have not found out if this works or not. I'm going to guess it doesn't. And so this is the third one I've done sort of global in the last 48 hours, and I have totally failed in not coming up with what the international answer is. But if you want to sort of keep in touch, you can go to my website, tiffanybova.com, and sign up for my newsletter there. Follow me on LinkedIn and or Twitter. But I've got a podcast as well called What's Next with Tiffany Bova across all the streaming platforms. It's really fun conversations with some fascinating and interesting people I meet along the way. And then your team was absolutely amazing in getting all of you a copy of my book via an ebook. I think that they're going to be putting the link in the chat. So please download it, enjoy the book. I'd love to hear back what you think. It's been really a pleasure to spend time with such an amazing trailblazing company such as you guys. And thank you so much for your time and attention. So I think now we are going to shift over to Q&A. So I will stop sharing the screen and we will shift to that.
Hey, thank you so much, Tiffany. That was fantastic. A lot of kudos and thank yous coming your direction in the chat here. And Jesse did just share the link for that free ebook, and there are a lot of thank yous coming from that as well. The chat has been very busy, but I don't think we have anything official in the Q&A. If anybody has anything that they want to mention to, oh, just had one come through.
Yeah, you guys post the questions. I'm here for you. Go for it.
Awesome. So the first question that popped up is, what are your career growth goals for 2022?
Oh, that's such a good one. Well, the book is a couple years old. She's now translated in 9 languages. So it's in simple Chinese, Chinese, Polish, Vietnamese, Spanish, Portuguese, the Queen's English, and Korean. And so that's been an amazing journey, but I'm right in the throes of writing my second book, which will come out in early next year. So my career aspiration this year is to finish the book on time. Like that's like, let's just get to the basics while at the same time doing my day job, while at the same time giving, so 200 keynotes that, around the globe. But I'm really looking forward to getting back on an airplane. I've just started flying again. So I'm looking forward to having those conversations with people that actually challenge me to be a learner all the time, because people will ask me something or say something or have a concept that I've never thought about. And that's really inspiring to me as well.
Yeah, I know every time I run into one of our sales or channels partners, folks that are used to being on airplanes, they are itching to get back in the air. So I think, yeah, we're all there. Wonderful. So Tiffany, next question. What would you say is the bravest thing you have done in your career and why?
Oh, without a doubt, it was writing the book. Look, I'm a salesperson. I don't have my MBA. I stumbled into selling technology. I was pretty good at it. I worked startups, mid-sized businesses. My last job was at a US Fortune 500 company where I ran a division and built it from sort of 5 million to about 300 million in a little less than 2 years. And so that is aggressive growth. And then I went on to be an analyst, which I didn't even know what that meant. So it took me a couple of years to sort of find my voice on what am I doing? I'll tell you a funny story. It was first day at Gartner in Florida with the research team, head of research standing on stage. And he tells a joke about a philosopher. Okay, first, I didn't know who the philosopher was. 2, I didn't get the joke. Okay, then not 30 seconds later, about 2 doors down, I hear the Rocky theme coming from the sales kickoff. And in my head, I'm like, I have made a horrible mistake. I don't get this joke. I should be over there. So that kind of began my journey of being a thought leader, which, you have to wait till people say that about you. You can't really call yourself that. Took me a decade. And writing the book was a broad way to just be very rejected, right? Like, will anybody read it? Will anybody like it? Will it get translated in languages? Will it become a bestseller?
All the way out there. Yeah.
All the way out there. So I'd say that whole transition from being a seller to learning how to being a thinker to then saying, I think I have something to say that people will want to read and listen about. That whole sort of transition for me away from being a sales, marketing, and customer service leader, it took me time. And, there's still times where I go, should I really be in this room, right? Or on this list, or, I think that that's just natural, but for sure, it was a huge career transition, right? Being a salesperson to not carrying a quota and selling vicariously through the, 10,000 or so sales reps we have here is very different. So I'd say that would be my biggest one.
Wonderful. What a story. Good for you. All right. We've got 2 more questions, so I'll try to get through them real quick. The first is, do you have any book recommendations that have helped you other than your own?
Oh, besides my own? No, I'm kidding. So yes. So I'll give you a couple. They're sort of behind me here, but I'll give you a couple. One is my dear friend, Nancy Duarte, has written a ton of books on storytelling, but her latest book, Data Story, is about how do you take data and tell a better story with it in order to get executives or peers or teammates to make different decisions. So Data Story was fantastic because I have to consume a lot of data, and then understanding what to do with that data, especially as an analyst for a lot of years, figuring that out. So I love that. I love Hubert Joly just wrote a book. He was the previous CEO of Best Buy, The Heart of Business, really getting to what's the importance of business being the greatest platform for change. Love that. Digital communication, Eric Darwood's new book on how to communicate digitally and communicate effectively. That's good. And then like my old time favorites, Tom Peters in Search of Excellence was the first business book I ever read. And then he endorsed my book 30 years later. What a full circle moment. I'm a huge fan, love me some Tom Peters. And then Seth Godin, anything Seth writes. He is the cover quote on my book. So I'm also a huge fan of anything he writes, but there's so many because I have to consume so much content, but those would be the ones I'd say are relevant right now.
That is great. I'm hoping that somebody on this call was writing all of those down because I am without a writing utensil at the moment. All right, and this is the last of the questions. We're right at 1:45, but anybody that wants to stay on for one more minute, I'm sure Tiffany will answer this last one. This one is, as a female leader at a hugely successful global corporation, any advice on the forever uphill battle of balancing being strong and vocal as a woman in the corporate world?
Oh, we don't have enough time, but here's what I'd say. Do not mistake confidence for ego. Like, I'm confident in what I do. I sort of know my stuff. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. But don't take the fact that I say I'm pretty good at what I do as I'm coming from a place of ego. I'm coming from a place of confidence. There are times where I'm not confident, and that doesn't always translate. And so you have to figure out what is the right tone, communication method for you to engage with people where they don't sort of misunderstand that it is really about confidence and not coming at them saying, you know the answer and only the answer and it's your way or no way. I think that was a hard lesson for me, but I'll be fully transparent. The moment I got off the merry-go-round of being an actual practicing executive running sales, marketing, and service was literally for this reason. I sort of got very exhausted from banging my head against the wall of not getting anywhere. This was, I started in technology in the middle 90s. Like, we're in 2022. I've been doing this for a moment. And back then I was the only female selling tech, for sure. And I was sitting at tables where I was the only woman in the room, for sure. And then, my name's Tiffany. So that's a whole nother conversation, which is a fun one for another day. But I will tell you that, I had to really sort of get thick skin and feel that I had to find my tribe that would surround me and hold me up when I was feeling insecure and not capable of really doing my job. It's not easy, but I promise you, it is better than it was. There's so much promise today. I'm so excited about the next generation of female leaders. And I love the male allies that are there to really lift those up. It's not just women and men, it's underrepresented minorities, it's cultural differences and language differences and disabilities. I mean, there's so much difference between just men and women. So, I'm just excited about seeing how much this new generation is going to change the face of business.
Absolutely. And knowing the bit I do about you, I am sure you are now part of lots of other women's tribes out there holding them up too. So thank you on behalf of all of us women trying to find our way through here. So Tiffany, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sticking around a couple of extra minutes to answer questions, and everybody go out and download this ebook.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Encino. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tiffany.